everyone. I'm Sheriff Wayne Ivey of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, and welcome to another episode of On the Go with BCSO, our podcast where we get a chance to see some of the behind-the-scenes things that take place at the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, as well as talk to some of our incredible members. As always, I got my main man, Jay Martinez, with me here. Jay, how you doing, my friend?
All right, good to be here.
Good. You want something to drink, or I see you?
No, I got it covered today.
All right, yeah. So I guess you're on a water diet or something.
1 gallon a day.
1 gallon a day. All right. So, well, we're gonna jump in, and we have with us today Sergeant Terry Laufenberg, who is in charge of our crime scene. And Terry, I've had a chance to not only work with you through the years, back when I was with FDLE, moving forward to now getting to serve in this capacity, but also our kids grew up together and played soccer together, and got to watch them grow up and move on and doing great things now. So, how you doing? Everything going well?
Going well.
All right. So you have a crime scene here at the Sheriff's Office under your charge. How many people do you have in your unit?
The crime scene unit consists of 10 individuals, 9 of which are crime scene investigators. 1 is an investigative support specialist.
So somebody that's out there right now saying, you know what, I want to get involved in crime scene. The forensic side of it's got great, draw to me. What do they need? What kind of education do they need?
Our agency requires a 4-year degree specifically in a crime scene related field, not just criminal justice or something like that. We specifically want the crime scene experience out of college. The one thing I could tell people is to pick a good program. West Virginia University has a great program, and so does Kaiser University. So we require that 4-year degree just to get in the door. People need to remember with the shows that are going on and the interest in crime scene, we will literally have 125 applicants for 1 crime scene position. So it's a very hard field to get into, to get your foot into the door.
Any chance Jay could do it?
No, sir.
All right.
Not even close.
Appreciate your candor there.
I do go to high schools a lot and talk to kids about career day, and almost every single one they say about CSI, they want to be involved in that, and I tell them it is a hard thing to get into. So focusing on the education is really important.
Yes, it's the more you can do in your education, especially a 4-year degree. We have a lot of people that apply with a 2-year degree. Mm-hmm. The people with the 4-year degree usually outweigh those in the question and answer, and some of the programs are just better. Like I said, the 2 universities I spoke about actually have a hands-on program. Okay. West Virginia University actually goes to the extent of, in one of their classes, they will call out teams in the middle of the night to come process a scene. They'll set up a scene, and then in the middle of the night, they'll call their students out to process that scene, just like it would happen in real life.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, I get the chance all the time to see our team work, and they are second to none in my book, man. You do a great job with them, and there's a lot more to it than I think what people see on TV. And we're going to talk about a little bit of difference between TV, what you see on TV, and what real life is. But I think one of the biggest things is it's not just about being able to go out and process the scene. It's about being able to do the afterwork of processing the evidence, and then also being able to testify as an expert in your field of being able to work with the prosecutor to deliver that case to a jury or in trial. So how long does it take for somebody to get from walking in the door as a new applicant, a new hire, to that point?
To get up to the expert status, it usually takes them around 5 years of actual work. When they first come through the door, we put them through our own 16-week program of training where they shadow or work with one of our crime scene investigators for 16 weeks. And then they're sent out on their own. And even when they first get out, within their first year, in some of the cases, we'll send another investigator out with that new person just because of the intricacies of that specific case. It takes probably about 2 years for one of our crime scene people to get comfortable that they have enough knowledge that they could process most scenes without assistance.
Right. So I know one of the things that I've been in this business for almost 40 years, and I've seen the equipment that we use change. When you started, how long ago did you start with the Sheriff's Office in that field? And total actually, how long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 21 years. I started in 1998. In 2000.
Yeah.
Were you alive then?
Just barely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. because there's only one person in my unit that was alive when I started as a law enforcement officer. So I started in 1998, and in 2000 I transferred to the crime scene unit as an agent, and that began my crime scene career. To give you an example of the changes, we had a 35 millimeter film back then. We also had our fuming chamber for super gluing items was a fish tank.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a homemade ventilation system for chemicals that, kind of humorous, we would put paper up there that we applied chemical to, and we'd turn it on, and it was so powerful that if you didn't attach it quickly, it would suck the paper up and shoot it out through the roof, and you'd have to chase it down.
That was some high-tech equipment we had back then.
It was great.
I want a disclaimer, that happened on somebody else's watch, not under my watch.
That was a long time ago, before the shows, before everything became prevalent. And
What's the budget? Oh, I'm gonna give you this fish tank and a fan. Do the best you can.
that's about what we had, to tell you honestly. And like if you had back then, if you had like bloody clothes, now we have this cabinet, a drying cabinet that we put them in, has HEPA filters, and you put it in there, turn it on, it dries it out and gets all the impurities out of the air. Back then, we had a room where we put paper on the floor,
Yeah.
and we put clothesline across and hung them and let them drip dry.
Let's think about the difference in biohazard way we deal with biohazard materials today versus back then.
Oh, absolutely. Back then, it wasn't right, but back then the stuff went in the trash. And now, now we actually have biohazard pickup. We have specific bins. We put them in, and they're disposed of properly.
And even down to the attire you wear when you're out on a scene, on a biohazard type scene, to protect our members, to protect them against the biohazards and the way we deal with it. It's all changed.
Yes, we have Tyvek suits. We have masks. We have better gloves. Actually, it's interesting to look at some of the cold cases and look at the crime scene photographs and see them out there with bare hands, handling evidence, handling bodies and stuff like that, way back in the 80s and 70s. So it has come a long way, and we've gone from when I started, basically hand drawing diagrams, to now using a Faro 3D scanner, which scans the room for us and builds a 3D model of the scene.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. The technology that we use today, for example, the scanner you're talking about now. Historically speaking, you would go in and it was a drawing, a sketch, if you will, of the crime scene and measurements and everything else done with a tape measure. Today, this device does everything for us.
That's correct. We set up the scanner, hit the button, it scans. When it's done, we move it to another location, scan again to try to get all aspects of the room. And the program actually builds itself. And the technology has gotten so advanced now that when we have that diagram, we can actually put virtual reality glasses on you, and you can actually walk through that scene in our diagram. It's really cool stuff now.
Yeah, man. So,
I wonder if they can scan my office and I can put on 3D glasses at my house and just, yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
That might
don't
work
answer
for
that. No.
that might work for a minute.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't fired him yet, but so one day maybe. So if somebody's coming out right now, what would your advice to be to them to get into the field you're in?
My advice would be to pick a good university, a good program. Try to get an internship with an agency that specifically in the crime scene unit, and also to volunteer if they can at their local agencies. Our agency, we don't use volunteers because of the criminal aspect of it. It's very difficult. You have volunteers come and go. You have to track them down if they've done anything for you. So we generally don't have volunteers in. We do a lot of internships in our agency. We bring these students in. We actually changed up our internship when, 15 years ago, an intern would come in, and the vast majority of what they were doing was filing stuff for us or replicating things for us, videotapes and stuff like that, or CDs. And now what we did is we took our training program for our actual crime scene personnel, and we condensed it down to 12 weeks, which is usually the internship. And we actually train the intern just like we would train our crime scene person, so they'll actually get that hands-on experience and not just watch.
Yeah, you know, the internships are an extreme value to us in every level, not just in crime scene, but it gives us a chance to meet the intern, see, you know, kind of evaluate their abilities and their fit, if you will. It gives them a chance to meet us and evaluate our abilities and our fit. And a lot of times it becomes a great recruiting tool for us, and getting them back on board with us after they complete their education and being able to come back and work for us. So it works across the board. What's the difference, Terry, if you had to just kind of narrow it down? People watch CSI all the time. They, you know, like Jay was saying, we go somewhere and speak, and people say, "Well, I saw on CSI this and that." And certainly, I think programs like CSI have been a great build for people coming into this profession. I think it's done a great job in that sense. But there's some obvious differences between what CSI shows on TV and what real life is. So what's those differences? What's the biggest difference?
Well, two of the biggest differences is the time frame. They tend to do things very quickly and get results back very quickly, and that just doesn't happen in real life. But that's TV shows.
Very quickly, like you mean within an hour show? Right?
Yeah, within an hour show, you know, like they'll run a DNA sample, and you know, they'll put it into the system and right then go, oh, here's a match. Right. And it just doesn't work out that way.
See, that's why I've been wondering why it's taking y'all so long.
Yes.
I keep asking the chief, what are they doing down there?
Yeah.
Why
is it taking so long?
Yeah, why is it taking so long?
But they you know, they have to change it a little bit to make it fit for them. And it's like running a fingerprint. They'll put a fingerprint into the system, and it'll pop up and say it's Sheriff Ivy. Well, hope not. But what really happens is they'll put the fingerprint in there, and it'll send back anywhere from 10 to 30 close matches, and then the person has to actually look at those 30 compared to that print, and it takes quite a while. And then even after you make that match in that system, you have to get the person's actual fingerprints and do a one-to-one match, because that information actually, the CODIS information, the DNA database, or the APHIS for fingerprints, that information can't be used in court. You can't go into court and say, I got a CODIS hit on so-and-so. You just say, I had an investigative lead that led me to this person's name, and then we get their DNA and we match it one-to-one. Right. So those are two of the big differences.
So even like, and I'm assuming it's still this way, I know back when I was with FDLE, we had a pretty significant case, sexual battery case, where individual got sentenced to prison. When he went to prison, his DNA got entered into the database, and he kicked it out, and we were able to connect him to 6 other sexual batteries that had occurred over a period of years. But back then, we had to physically go, even with that DNA, that kick out, we had to physically go and do a buccal swab of the individual at the state prison to be able to absolutely say this is his DNA and then compare it again. Is that still consistent?
Yes, that's the way it's done to this date, because what happens is when that DNA is entered into the system, it could be entered in, let's say, Virginia, an inmate up there, somebody takes his swab. There's no way to track really who took that swab and to bring that person all the way down here for court to say, yes, this is, and then you have to get the person that entered it to say, yes, I took this and I entered it, and that poses a problem in court. So you do the one-to-one, so you know you got the person's swab, and you can testify this is a swab.
There's no doubt.
There's no doubt, and that's why those systems aren't used for quote identification. The other thing is no matter what those shows do, they cannot replicate. Well, for one thing, I wish at least half the scenes we went to were as pristine as their scenes are in there. They're always so clean and nice.
And I'm just guessing here, you drive like a Humvee and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah, you bought me that last year. I appreciate it.
No, Jay. It's not. So, Jay's already over there going, "Can I get one?" So, it was rhetorical, Jay.
Yeah, we drive vans, and we do have one truck, but we drive vans. We don't drive the pretty exotic cars. We don't dress in, we dress in this polo shirt and BDUs. We don't wear fancy clothes or high heels and stuff like that. But the other thing is they just can't replicate. You can't get the experience of the smell of either death or scenes. And even though you look at pictures all the time, even if you think, I look at these pictures, I'm good with it. When you actually get to a scene or you actually get to an autopsy, it's a whole different experience because now all your senses are involved. Those shows just can't replicate that. And I understand what they do. Every show does it. If you look at Star Trek back in the day, they had their little flip phones back then. Well, all of a sudden, now we truly do have flip phones. We have smartphones. So they try to push the limit on what it is for entertainment. To give you an example, I watched one show where the person was stabbed and they used microsil, which is an item we use for tool mark impressions. And they poured microsil into the wound and came out with a perfect blade of a knife in the human body. That's just virtually impossible to do, but for entertainment value, that's what they do. So there are quite a lot of differences, but the main one is the speed in which they get the information. We don't get that information that quick. Yeah. The quickest turnaround I've had in a DNA case when we pushed it was 5 days. But the average is about 4 to 6 months before we get DNA results.
I think another exception to what they show too is, we have a great partnership with FDLE and their labs and the things that they do for us. But the things they do for us, they're doing for every other agency in the state of Florida too. And so there's a serious time constraint in there of how long it takes them just because of the order in which your stuff comes in, and it takes a while. So I was watching CSI One. I have to be honest. I have to admit I haven't watched it a lot, and I think probably because the first night I watched it, they called in over the radio for a fingerprint match on somebody, and I was like, okay, I'm done with that. So, but I'm assuming we don't have that technology.
No, we don't.
So kind of walk me through. There are no average days for anybody in our business, not just crime scene, but for anybody in law enforcement. But walk me through what could happen in the course of a day for one of your team.
Well, how we work it is that they all work Monday through Friday 8 to 5, and each one of them has a call day throughout the week, the 7 days a week. They usually average about 4 call days a month. On their call day, they're responsible for all calls that come out. They could, the interesting thing about our job is they could go to anything from a burglary to a homicide. So they really never know what they're getting into. There's so many aspects of our job that people don't understand. We do presentations at schools. We do photographs for the agency. We do all sorts of other activities also. But the average day for a crime scene person is usually spent doing in-house stuff, which is items that the road deputies send to us to process in our lab. And then if they get a call out, they'll go to those. Now, if you're unlucky enough, I've had a person get up to 5 call outs in one day.
Wow.
And we just 2 weeks ago in a 3-day period, we had 11 death cases we worked in a 3-day period. So one day you could be in your office doing lab work and just go through the day with nothing, and you're doing your reports, you're doing your lab work, and the next day you could be out in the field continuously. So,
do you guys have somebody in the unit that you hate for them to be on call because they're like the
black
worst,
cloud?
the black cloud?
The black cloud?
Yeah.
No, not right now. I can't identify a black cloud. I can identify 2 that are extremely lucky. We have Jenna Gardner just doesn't seem to get call days. The homicide people like when Jenna's on call because they know she's not getting a call out. It's luck of the draw. I do the schedule a month in advance, and it's just the luck of the draw. Some people get very lucky, and some people do not.
Now, Terry, in your career, worst scene that you, and without being specific about names or anything, just the worst scene that still to this day you remember every vivid detail of it?
Well, there's actually three. I early in my career, in fact, I was only in the unit like 6 months when I worked a double homicide in Melbourne. It was very brutal. They had been bludgeoned, they had been stabbed. It was a very brutal scene. I can remember every detail of that scene. In fact, I just went to the resentencing hearing on the individual about 2 months ago. It was still very vivid. The other is in Port St. John. We worked a case, unfortunately, that the mother took the lives of her 4 children.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I can still remember going into one of the children's rooms and looking at it and thinking the same posters and stuff were on my kids' walls. So that was a room, to tell you honestly, in that scene I could no longer go into because it just reminded me of my own kids. And the third scene was actually in the city of Palm Bay. Palm Bay had asked us to cover for them. And again, a mother had taken the life of her 3 children. So those 3 cases, I remember every aspect of all 3 of those cases. There are several others that I remember, but those are the top 3 that stick in my mind. I could tell you, without looking at a report, every single detail.
Of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
You know, I think a lot of times when we have those, because going back over my 4 years, I can think about certain scenes that I was on and that connection. You know, you talked about the posters on the wall and those type of things. I can think about every little piece as it connects to you, and I think those are the ones that stick with you. But how do you coach your team, mentor your team? How do they deal with that? I always tell people that when you get into our field, you have to have 2 things: 1, very thick skin, and 2, a sense of humor that will kind of get you through some of those tougher things. But how do you coach your team, and how do you guys pull upon each other to?
Well, we have pretty good support within our unit. We talk about things, and humor is one of those things. Luckily in the office atmosphere, the citizens probably wouldn't like too much our humor, but it's just humor to get us through these situations. And I try to make sure that they rely not only on each other, but their bonds outside the agency. I think it's very important in law enforcement. We tend to be a tight-knit group in law enforcement, and I think that having somebody outside of law enforcement that's very close to you, whether it's your wife, husband, or just a close friend outside of law enforcement that you can talk to about these things, because not that we're not sensitive or anything like that, but they will tend to have a more sensitive point of view as to the incident. I hate to say it that way, but a more human point of view.
Yeah,
on
because
it.
I think we become very hardened in how we let things in, or almost we put that shield up, if you will, and so having somebody look at it from a different perspective often helps out.
Absolutely, and the sad aspect of crime scene is even in college, no matter what they do, and I've had one of my crime scene people who transferred out tell me this: it's going to change your life, and you will never be able to unsee what you've seen in our career. Your average road deputy might go to a death call once every other month because the way the zones work and all that. My people are constantly, almost every day, dealing with death. And when you're in that situation, and it's whether it's a violent death, a suicide type death, or an overdose, it's still a human being, and they're still dealing continually with death.
Right.
And that takes a toll, and I don't think any college can ever prep somebody for that. I don't think that's something that you'll realize until you walk through the door.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Terry, it's been great to have you on the show, and I think you've offered some great insight into the field of crime scene and all the evidence and everything. I guess my last thing for you is you've done a great job at coaching our team, and as I said, I think we have some of the best in the business. I'll put our team up against anyone else. Could you take Jay Martinez and transform him into a good?
We were actually on a scene early in my career And
I just told that story.
okay, yeah, I was thinking, I was like, that sounds oddly familiar.
But
So,
could you make him a great crime scene person?
If he could get past the gagging he did at the
yes,
crime scene,
yeah.
I could
You
get
talked about all 5 senses, and
Yes.
the
Oh,
smell,
that's
the
bad.
smell of the crime scene.
Man, that's where we're going to leave this, Jay. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about this later. So, well,
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to give a plug to my unit because I do have a great unit.
There's no doubt.
The individuals in there are hardworking. They're always available. I call them 24/7. Weekends, holidays, mess up their home lives completely. And we've had in the crime scene unit 3 employees of the year
Yeah.
just in our unit. And I think that sets aside this past year it was Stephanie Haas. She got Employee of the Year. And I think that shows that it is a great unit, and I'm very proud. It's amazing to work with these individuals and to have them under me.
Man, I'll tell you right now, Terry, I agree with you 100%. You're right, man. When you're getting to walk up on that stage as the Employee of the Year for our agency of 1,700 people with our volunteers and stuff, you've really set the bar pretty high. And I think that's a great testament to you and the team you've built there and how well you guys get along and everything. So we're gonna close out. I want to thank everybody for being with us here on the go with BCSO. Sergeant Terry Laufenberg is going to stay another 25 years with the agency, and the camera's not on him right now anyway, so it doesn't matter if he's shaking his head no. But we appreciate all the support you give us in our community, and we'll talk to you next time on the go with BCSO.